This is the 2021 Ford F150 XL. It is the base level truck, so the entry trim level for the F150. Now, a couple of things about the one in behind me. It's got the 8-foot box and it's also got 4x4. On top of that, it also has the Hitch receiver on it. So this thing is more or less as base as it's gonna get. You could get rid of the 4x4 to give you just that rear-wheel drive instead, but this thing is actually kind of neat for what it is. If you're a farmer, just need something to rip around the property. If you're looking for something to just be able to tow some things, this is actually a surprisingly good option because of the upgrades that came inside of the 2021. Guys, Steve here, Cars with Steve. We're gonna dive into it and figure out everything we need to know about this truck. Make sure you smash that like button, but guys, let's dive right into it and see what the 2021 Ford F150 XL has to offer. All right, now taking a look underneath the hood of the vehicle. So the F-150 has a boatload of engine choices and options that are available. However, we're looking just at the 3.3-liter 6-cylinder, which is going to come standard inside of this thing. From a power perspective, it's going to be able to push out 290 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. Now, as I mentioned, when it comes down to it, there are a ton of different options available in this thing. Check down in the description below. I go over all the different engine configuration choices and options and things like that are available inside of this vehicle. But taking a look under the hood, we've got easy access to a number of things. If we need to top up our fluids, we can easily do that. We've got easy access to the battery as well in case we ever need to give anybody a jump. So pretty neat. It is, like I mentioned, a very base vehicle. We do have a backup camera, so we do have the ability to see what's going on behind us, and this is actually a really, really cool thing. Look at this middle screen now. So we don't have that tiny little 4-inch screen anymore inside of the F-150. They've gone with this thing instead. So we've got Sync 3, which is going to give us Android Auto and Apple CarPlay capability. So props on Ford for actually ditching that old screen inside of this and giving you a much more functional screen instead. All right, so as I mentioned, this is the base of the base truck, and let me show you something for a second here. This is the key. So it is just your basic key fob there, so we don't have power locks. You are still manual inside of the XL version of the vehicle in the 100 package that we're looking at here. So really, I can't really explain much more about the key fob there because we are still on a basic key, but what I can do is show you one thing. So on the F-150, if you ever need to access the mini spare tire, all you're gonna do, you're gonna use the key fob inside of there, and the tire is just underneath. So very straightforward there in order to be able to access it. All right, so this one here, as you can see, does not have the tailgate step, but you could order that from the factory if you needed to get easier access to the bed. But we do have our clamp, so if we ever need to tie anything down, if we need to hold anything down, I should say, to cut some wood, whatever the case may be, we can easily do that. And as you can see along the side, we've got a couple cleats there, so we've got our 4 tie downs, and then we've also got the ability to use the box link, so we can throw some more cleats in there, so we'd have a total of 8 different tie downs. So this one, as I mentioned, is the 8-foot box. So in the regular cab 8-foot box, it actually is not too shabby from a length perspective. So depending on what your needs are, the regular cab may actually work for you. But again, it's going to depend on, are you really only needing 2 or 3 passengers? Are you looking for just a basic work truck to just kind of be able to go around, drive around a field, pull something light, etc.? You've got that capability. From a towing perspective, the 3.3-liter engine with the 4x4 configuration in the 8-foot box, you're going to be able to pull about 8,200 pounds inside of this thing. Now, there's a couple things to consider when it comes down to max payload, max towing, things like that. What options are you putting inside the vehicle? So what extra features? Because remember, everything has a weight. That's going to affect your end payload and your max towing capacity. Check down in the description below. I've got a video that goes over a little bit more about towing capacity and max payload capacity inside of these vehicles. But one other thing to point out, this one here just has the Hitch receiver, so it's not the full tow package, but even with the receiver there, we do have our 4 and 7-pin wiring harnesses, the provisions there. So if you've got a trailer with those, those turn signals, you can easily hook it up in the back of this thing. When it comes down to filling up in fuel on this thing, very straightforward, just along our driver's side. As you can see, we've just got a little cover there. Capless system, you're just gonna insert your hose, fill up, and you're set to go. Now, if you're concerned about gas theft, because this is a capless system and it's a non-lockable cap, there are some great aftermarket products that are available, literally ones that'll just sit inside there with a key that'll literally lock out access to this. So definitely something to consider. You do have options when it comes down to it. When it comes down to fuel type and fuel capacity on this thing, fuel type is just your regular 87 octane, so your regular gas. You don't need to put a premium fuel inside of this thing. Now looking along our driver's side door, nothing to write home about. This is a base truck. So we've got the ability to open up our doors, we've got some storage spacing, and then on top of that, we've also got manual windows. Like, how old school is this? But at the same time, if you need something a little bit more basic and you're trying to save a couple bucks, this is definitely a good option. Looking just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. So a few things to point out there. We've got a button in order to turn on our bed lighting, and we've got a selector switch to figure out what's going on with our running lamps. So very top is off, very bottom is permanently on. I always recommend to keep it on this A setting though. That's the auto setting. That's going to let the vehicle determine if the daytime or the nighttime running lamps are going. This one is going to be our selectors or our dimmer switches for this instrument cluster, so we can make that screen brighter or darker as necessary. And then we've got our parking brake, and then the ability to open up the hood. So if we need to open up the hood, we can easily do that. Now, one thing to point out, inside of the XL version of the vehicle, you can just kind of make it out, but this is vinyl flooring. So no carpet option there. We are just strictly vinyl inside of this thing. But one of the cool things with the vinyl is that if we need to easily clean this thing out, all you have to do is hose it down and you're good to go. So that's pretty neat. So definitely something to consider. Adjusting the driver's seat inside of the XL is a manual process. Like everything that we've seen, it's all manual inside of this base truck. So, a couple of things we have to consider. In order to move the seat forwards and backwards, there's a lever just in between our legs. We're just going to crank that, slide the seat backwards or forwards as necessary. Once you've got that perfect position, release it and you're set to go. On top of that, we can also move the backrest. So we're just going to crank that lever up along our side, and we can move the backrest backwards or forwards as necessary. Same thing, once you've got that perfect position, release, and you're set to go. Now on top of that, we can also adjust our headrest. So if you need to bring it up or down a little bit, there's a little button to the left-hand side that we can push that in order to lower it, or we can just crank it up if we need to raise it up a little bit more, just to make it a little bit more comfortable as we're driving. Now adjusting the driver's seat inside of this thing is a very straightforward process as well. So just by our left knee, as you can see there, we've got a little lever. We're gonna take that lever, we're gonna crank it down, and it's not telescopic, so we can just move it up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, you're just gonna take the lever, crank it up, and lock it back into place. Now this is the new media screen for the 2021 F150. So a couple things to point out. This is actually the Sync 4 system, which means that we've got wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is incredible. Now a couple things to note. This one obviously does not have factory navigation, but don't worry about it. You don't need it. Using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, we can use Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps directly through this middle screen. So this is going to be the basic home screen of the vehicle. If for whatever reason you're on another screen, very straightforward. Just go back to that home icon there, and that's going to pull you back to this home screen. So we've got our radio. We can toggle that on or off by pressing the button in the middle there. We've got a compass, and we've got our phone as well. So if our phone was connected, it would show up there. But let's kind of go tab by tab, and I'll show you some of the different things that are available. Starting off in the audio tab, we've got a few different things. So this is the text, the radio text there. We've got different sources. So we've got our AM, FM, Bluetooth. Now this one does not have Sirius XM. We'd have to look at a different trim level of the vehicle in order to get that feature. Now having said that, you've got a number of other audio sources that are available that aren't necessarily showing. So if your phone is connected via Bluetooth or USB, you'd be able to either pull up things like Pandora, Spotify, LiveX Live, so different radio apps directly through this middle screen. If you had any audio on your phone, that would also show up there as well. One of the other things, if you've got a USB stick with MP3s on it, you can insert that into any of the available USB ports, and it will pull up those MP3s that are on that USB stick. So really, really nice to know that we've got that flexibility. Tuning, we can do a couple different ways. We can either use the tuning knob there, which is not really the most ideal method. You can go direct tune, or you can use your voice by pressing the voice command button on the steering wheel. So tuning to a station, very straightforward. Let's say if we were to just enter a station there, as you can see, it changes it out for us. And let's do a quick audio test. Okay, for a stock system in an XL version of the F-150, that is pretty damn good. So definitely something to consider, that you've got some great audio quality inside of this thing. Now, if you want to save a preset, all you're going to do is tune to whatever station you'd like, and you're just going to press and hold any of the available preset spots. And as you can see, it saved it in. So it's that simple, and you can have a mix of AM and FM directly in these presets. Next up, let's move into our phone settings. So connecting a phone is a very straightforward process. Now this aspect of it is going to work the same whether it's an Android or an iPhone. So all we're going to do is press Add Phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
And on your phone, all you're going to do is just make sure that your Bluetooth is turned on. So we're just going to go Bluetooth on, and let's jump into our Bluetooth settings. And we're going to give that a second. Oh, there we go. So you can see F150 is showing up. So we're just going to select that.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Okay, so we're just going to make sure the pins match up, which they do. We're going to hit pair and then yes. And it's asking me, do I want to allow contacts and favorites to sync? Yep, I want to do that, so we're just going to hit allow.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Okay, so we are connected. Now, a few other things. Enable 911 assist. So I absolutely recommend turning that one on. And the big reason why is because if you're ever in an accident and the vehicle senses a collision, it's automatically going to dial 911 for us. So definitely recommend turn that one on. Just hit finish. And as you can see, I'm now fully connected there. Okay, so phone also supports Apple CarPlay. So one of the beautiful things about Sync 4 is that we're now on wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So on my phone, I've got another message that's come up that says use CarPlay with Sync 4. So yes, we want to do that. So we're just going to hit use CarPlay. And device supports Apple CarPlay, so we need to just make sure we enable that. And it's connecting now. And look at this. Look at this. I love the fact that it's so simple and that it's now wireless inside of this thing. So we don't need to worry about our USB cables anymore. Unless you're charging the phone up, you've got the ability to connect to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay directly through this middle screen. So as you can see, we are now fully connected. So we've got my phone, we've got my messages, and one of the nice things is that we've either got Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze that we can use directly through this middle screen. So just as an example, we can pull up Waze, and now instead of having to rely on factory navigation, we've got this actively going. Now, one of the cool things is that while we're connected, whether we're using Google Maps, Apple Maps, etc., we can still use the radio. So you've got the capability to still use the radio while you're using CarPlay, which is incredible. Now on the Apple side of things, we've got the ability to adjust a few things as well. So if we go into CarPlay settings, we've got my vehicle there, and we can customize some things. So if we go into our settings there, like let's say if you prefer to have, I don't know, maybe you prefer to use the Waze app. So we can just drag it and drop it to the top here, top of the list. Watch this, live updates. So you can tweak the sound, you can tweak the screen, you can kind of customize your layout. If there are certain things you're never going to use, like, oh, maybe you're never going to use podcasts, we can get rid of that, and it's just going to delete it from our screen there. Now, if we ever need to, it's still showing them along the bottom, so we can add it back in if we want to, or if you're playing around with it, you don't like what you've done, you can just hit reset, and that's going to reset it to your default factory layout for CarPlay. So really, really nice look there. Now, a couple things to point out. As I mentioned, we've got music, we've got podcasts, audiobooks, and a number of other things that we can use directly through this middle screen. Now, if for whatever reason you need to make sure you're charging through a USB, all you're going to do is literally take your USB cable, plug it into any of the available ports, and you're set to go. But you don't need to be plugged in to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay anymore. Now, if for whatever reason we need to get back to the home screen, all we're going to do is press forward, and as you can see there, it's brought us back to that Sync 3 home screen, or Sync 4 home screen, I should say. We can kind of do a hot press in order to get into certain apps. Now, if for whatever reason we need to get rid of Apple CarPlay or disconnect our phone, we're just going to go into settings. We've got my phone list, and as you can see there, we've got my phone. So we're just going to click into it, and we've got a few things. So we've got Apple CarPlay that we can easily disable if we need to, and we've got some basic phone settings as well. So we've got my ringtone that we can set and a number of other things. Now, if for whatever reason we ever need to get rid of my phone, so if you want to disconnect it, you can press this garbage button along the top, and we can completely remove the phone from the vehicle. And that's going to be the basics of adding Apple CarPlay and setting up an iPhone inside of this F-150. Adding an Android device is essentially the exact same process. So what we're going to do is just make sure we're on our car's Bluetooth, or on our phone's Bluetooth. On the vehicle, we're just going to hit Add Phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, so same thing. We're just waiting for the F-150 to pop up there. Let's do a quick scan. Okay, perfect. F-150 is available, so we're just going to press the F-150 button there.
Confirm that the pinless blade on sync matches the pinless blade on your device.
Okay, and on my phone, it's making sure. So passkey is the same, so we're just going to hit OK on the phone and yes on that Sync 4 screen. Okay, boom, we're connected.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Okay, so we're fully connected, which is great. Now it's also asking me if I want to allow access to my contacts. So yes, we're going to allow that. And now the vehicle also does support Android Auto, that's wireless. So same thing, we just have to make sure we hit enable and connecting to Android Auto on my phone. So allow contacts. Oh, perfect, look at this. So Android Auto would like to turn on Bluetooth in order to pair. We're just gonna hit next. And just like that, so we are now fully connected to Android Auto. So we've got Google Maps. If I had the Waze app installed, that would show up in this middle screen as well. So very straightforward. We could go to Google Maps. We can hotkey press it down there. We've got our notification settings as well as our Google Assistant. Now pressing the button along the very bottom will be a hotkey in order to pull up our maps. And as you can see there, we've got a number of different settings. So we can look at traffic, satellite, guidance, audio, and route options, and a number of other things. Pressing this button again will bring us right back to this middle screen instead. So same thing on the Apple side of things. If we ever need to get back to the original Sync 4 screen, we're just going to press the forward button, and then that's going to bring us back to this middle menu. And then same thing to relaunch into Android Auto, we're just going to press the button there, and we are now fully connected again, bringing us back to the home screen. Now, if we ever need to remove a phone from the vehicle, whether it's an Android device or an Apple device, it's very straightforward. So we are, as of right now, connected. So if we go back to our sync button there, and we're just going to hit settings, and from there we've got our phone list, and as you can see there, we've got my iPhone that I connected earlier, and we've got the Galaxy device that's now currently connected. So same thing, we can either toggle off Android Auto, so if we want to be charged up or if we want to be connected without using Android Auto, we can easily disable it, or we can just press the trash button in the top right, and we can completely remove this phone from the vehicle. As you can see there, we go back to our phone list again, and the Galaxy is now disconnected. It's really that simple. Okay, now moving back, so we've got our basic phone settings. We've already covered that one off. We can reconnect easily to the phone if we need to. So it's going to take a second there, but we're now, again, same thing, fully disconnected. We've got my favorites, calls, contacts, etc. Moving into apps. So certain apps will work directly through this middle screen. Moving into our settings. We've got a number of different vehicle settings that are available. So let's go tab by tab as well. Starting off, we've got our sound settings. So sound, we've got the ability to change our treble, mid-range bass, balance or fade, or our speed compensated volume. Moving into our clock, so if we need to adjust our clock, we can do that a few different ways. So in settings under clock, or if we're on the home screen, we just press the clock button at the top, and as you can see, that launches it right into those settings as well. We can either increase or decrease an hour or a minute, change between AM and PM, and switch out to that 24-hour military time instead. And then we've also got our auto time update. So I always recommend keeping that one on as well. We've got my phone list, which we've already covered off, and connectivity. So the vehicle itself is equipped with the ability to do over-the-air updates, so that's one of the really, really nice things. We've got some different connected vehicle features, so if we click on that, so we've got vehicle connectivity on or off, and we've also got some other things. So Sirius XM with 360L. So the vehicle itself is equipped with a few different things, so you would need a plan through Sirius XM in order to be able to access some of the features. Bluetooth, we can toggle Bluetooth on or off if we'd like to. Wireless app protection, so some apps will work directly through this middle screen as well. And then we can manage our Wi-Fi networks at home. So if we wanted to connect on our Wi-Fi network at home, that's where we would go, and we can view available networks. So really, really nice if you want to do updates over the air at home. Moving into our radio. So radio, we've got our radio text and then preset pages. So preset pages, I always recommend maxing that one out. So if we go to 6 pages, I'm going to show you what happens there. Moving back into audio, so as you can see there, we've now got 30 individual presets that we can save. So if you're a heavy user of AM, FM, etc., you'd have the ability to program in a ton of different codes there, or a ton of different stations, I should say. Moving into some basic vehicle settings. So we've got our onboard modem serial number, remote start. So this vehicle, obviously looking at the fob, it was very basic, does not have remote start as a default. Now, having said that, if you get remote start installed there, you can remote start either through the little fob, or you'd be able to remote start through your cell phone using the Ford Pass app. Does remote start active? Yes or no? And if you activate it, so if you use remote start, what happens? Climate control settings, so we can either go auto or to our last settings. Duration, either 5, 10, or 15-minute start. And we've got our wipers now, so setting there, so courtesy wipe. So if we've got our windshield wipers going, with the courtesy wipe, after it's cleared it off, it's going to take a second or two, and then it's going to wipe one more time. So it's essentially just getting rid of any sort of excess water that might be there. Lighting, so we've got some different options for vehicle lighting. So we've got our auto high beam settings. I always recommend keeping the auto high beam setting on, and the big reason why is because if the vehicle senses it's too dark, it's automatically going to flip your high beams on for you. If it recognizes an oncoming vehicle, it's automatically going to dim them before turning them off, and then it'll flip them right back on again. So definitely recommend keeping that one turned on. Our auto lamp delay, when we go to lock the vehicle, do the lamps stay on for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 120 seconds, or do they just turn off? Moving into our lock, so we've got a few different options there. So we've got our mislock chirp. The big one there is, so this key does not obviously have the electronic locking. So it's actually interesting that they've got the mislock chirp there, because typically what that would do is when you go to lock the vehicle, you'd get a double beep letting you know that there was a door that's not properly locked, or properly shut, I should say. And that's going to be the basics of the vehicle settings. Moving into some general settings now. So general settings, we've got our language, so English, Spanish, or French, Celsius and Fahrenheit, kilometers and liters per 100 or miles per gallon. We've got PSI, and the touch screen beep that we're getting here. If you're not a fan of that beep, we can turn that off easily just by toggling that switch on or off. And we've also got a few different things. So the reset button is going to be the big one here. So if your Ford Pass app is giving you issues, all you're going to do is do a reset. If you're selling your vehicle, or same thing, if it's giving you any sort of issues, you want to bring it back to your factory defaults, we're just going to go master reset, and then that's going to bring us back to factory default. So it's going to get rid of any settings that you might have saved on the vehicle. And that's going to be the basics of our general settings. Moving into our system updates. So I do recommend keeping the automatic system updates on and connect through Wi-Fi at home, because when the vehicle senses that there's an update available, it's automatically going to download that for you. 911 assist, we've already covered that one off. So if the vehicle senses a collision with your phone connected, it's automatically going to dial 911 for you. We've got some mobile apps that will work directly through this middle screen. So our Android app's going to be available via USB, and then our mobile app's going to be available in general. So we're going to hit mobile apps for a second there, and I want to show you something. So if we jump back into our app screen now, so we've got a few other ones. So LiveX Live is a radio app. So certain apps will work directly through this middle screen. The display, so this thing is nice, it's big, but some people might find it's a little bit too much. So you've got the ability to turn the display off if you want to, finger press in order to bring it back to life, or we can go to a calming screen where it's just the date and the time instead. Same thing, finger press in order to bring that to life. We've got our brightness and then our mode. So as of right now, it's in auto. So in auto mode, it's automatically going to flip us between our daytime or our nighttime mode, depending on how bright it is outside. So we're in the daytime mode right now. So if we flip out to nighttime instead, it's a beautiful blue look. Like, look at this once it's fully done updating. Look at this. Look at this mode. I love it. I love blue, love the look of this thing. So I would personally keep it in this mode all the time, but it's a matter of preference. Daytime mode is going to keep us in that lighter mode all the time. Nighttime is going to keep us in the nighttime. And the auto mode is going to switch between the daytime or the nighttime mode, depending on how bright it is outside. All right, next up, we've got our valet mode. So valet mode gives us the ability to lock out this screen. So we enter a 4-digit number, and then nothing is going to be selectable there. So the screen literally is locked out. You can turn the truck off, turn it back on again, and you'd still have to enter a 4-digit number in order to unlock the screen. So definitely useful if you're going to be using a valet driver, or just for general security purposes as well. We've got the ability to easily select between different navigation sources and different available apps through our phone. So you can see there, the only one on my phone that we can use actively is going to be Waze. And we've got vehicle hotspot. So the vehicle itself is equipped with an onboard modem, and we can use it as a wireless hotspot for up to 10 devices. So you do need a data-only plan through your cell phone provider in order to be able to do that. We can look at our active data usage, manage devices that are connected through the hotspot as well. And that's going to be the basics of our vehicle settings. Moving into some of our vehicle features now. So we've got some basic of driver assistance settings. So driver assistance settings, auto hold. With the auto hold setting turned on, if we're stopped, so we come to a complete stop, we can take our foot off the brake and it's going to hold the vehicle in place. Lane keeping system works 3 different ways. Way number 1 is going to be a little bit of a steering wheel shake, so the alert. So if we start to veer over into another lane without signaling, the steering wheel will shake, almost as if we're running over rumble pavement. The aid is actually going to take the steering wheel and it's going to recenter us and pull us back into our lane. And the alert and the aid will do both. So we'll get a little bit of a steering wheel shake, but then it's also going to pull us back into our lane and recenter us for us. The lane keeping intensity is going to be the intensity of that steering wheel shake. So is it going to be a high, normal, or a low shake? The best bet to really get a feel for that is to turn it on to a different setting and then just grab the steering wheel so you can feel what it's like. But the high shake, it's almost as if you're running over rumble pavement. You might think that there's something going on with your alignment, but that's not the case. It's literally just this mode that might be turned on there. As we start to move down, we've got a number of other things. So we've got pre-collision assist. So if the vehicle senses a potential collision, it's automatically going to brake for us if we don't respond. So pre-collision assist, we can turn that one off if we want to, but guys, trust me on this one, I always recommend keeping that one turned on. There is the ability to turn it off if you'd like to, and if you turn it off here, if you turn the vehicle off and back on, that's not going to automatically turn back on again. So general safety settings, but if you don't want it, you've got the flexibility to be able to turn it off and keep it off. Let's go to our rear view camera. So as you can see there, I'm just going to shift it into reverse for a second. So as you can see there, we've got our nice little guidance there. So really, really helpful, especially if you're going to be backing yourself up in order to be able to load up a trailer. Auto park brake is ready there as well. And we can just shift the vehicle back into park, and that brings us back there. So set to go there. Now, as we start to move down a little bit, we've got our driver alert as well. So if we get too many notifications because we're crossing over into a lane, the vehicle's going to let us know we should probably take a break. Towing. As of right now, there is no trailer tow. There's no trailer that is hooked up to the vehicle. We've got the ability to easily add trailers as well. We can look between our active trailers, manage any available trailers that you've already connected, and then we've also got our trailer sway control. So if the vehicle senses that there's sway going on in the trailer, it's automatically going to apply braking to the engine to get that sway under control. So really, really useful. And then we've got our owner's manual. So this is new for 2021. So when you buy a vehicle, you're actually not going to get a physical manual anymore. All you have to do is launch into this screen, look at the owner's manual, and you'll be able to scroll through everything that you may need to know. I think that was actually it for the vehicle settings. Yeah, that is literally it for the vehicle settings. So that's going to be it for this Sync 4 screen. Okay, now taking a peek at some of the buttons inside of this center stack. So very top there is our auto engine start stop. So with that one enabled, what's going to happen is, so it's actually currently off right now, which means that if we're stopped, it's not going to kill power to the engine. So that's something that I know a lot of people aren't a fan of. Now, one thing to note is that if we turn the truck off and we turn it back on again, that setting's going to reset. So we do have to make sure we press that every time we get in. You could technically disable it, but if you disable it, there is the potential of ruining or avoiding your warranty, so your factory warranty. So, I mean, there is a fix that's available, but like I mentioned, it could potentially void your warranty if there's ever anything tied to having this thing disabled. We've got our camera button there as well, so we've got a hot press in order to be able to see what's going on behind us there. We've got our four-way blinkers, and we've also got our traction control, so we can turn that system on or off as necessary. As we start to move down a little bit, so the same thing new for the 2021 year, we've got a little button press in order to be able to unlock this storage area. And let's look at some of these buttons. So this one is going to be our volume rocker. So we've got the ability to adjust our volume there. We can turn the audio system on or off. This one is going to be a hot button in order to get into our sound settings, so we can press that in order to get rid of them. And this is really cool, so new for this year, so we've got the ability to actively switch between our active sources. So we've got there we go. So we've got either AM, FM, so as of right now, so it can't connect to my phone for that LiveX Live, but we can switch between different sources by pressing this button. This is going to be a hot button press in order to either go to our calming mode, turning the screen off, or bringing the screen back to life again. We've got the ability to easily change between either radio stations or active songs, so we can kind of do our seeking there. So again, whether you go this way, tuning this way, manually tuning there instead, or using the voice button on the steering wheel, you've got a ton of different options in order to be able to change stations out. As we start to move over a little bit more, as I mentioned, this is going to be your tuning rocker. And let's move down a little bit. So this one is equipped with 4x4, so as you can see there, we do have our 2 high, 4 high, and our 4 low, and we've got the ability to change between different drive modes. So watch what happens there as we start to move this knob around. So we've got our normal mode, we've got our slippery mode, deep snow and sand, mud and ruts. So each mode is going to do different things to the drivetrain, and then moving the other way, we've got our tow haul, our eco, as well as our sport mode. So you've got some different modes and some different capabilities there, all based off of what you're doing with the vehicle. Now moving across a little bit, so as you can see there, we've got the ability to figure out what's going on with our climate control. So we've very basic settings here. We've got our fan control, system on or off. Is it going to our windshield face or our feet? Air circulation, air conditioning, and then what's going on with the actual temperature inside the vehicle. Moving over a bit more, we do have a 12-volt adapter, so our regular cigarette lighter adapter. And there also is a few, and there also are, sorry, I should say, a few USB ports. We've got our USB as well as our USB-C, and we also do have a few more ports along the bottom there. So as you can see, we've got a couple more ports that are available and another 12-volt adapter. So we've got the ability to plug quite a few things into this vehicle. On top of that, we've got a little bit of a storage space there, and we've got our glove book compartment. So nothing really to write home about there, but a little bit of storage space if you need it. Now this is the regular cab version of the vehicle, so we don't have a back seat, but we do have a bench seat in the front there. Now if for whatever reason you never need to pull the seat down, you've got the capability to do that. There's a little lever there, and that's going to pull the seat forward and lock it down into place there. So as you can see, we've got a few cup holders now and a little bit of a station to work if we need to, and along the back. So as you can see, we do have a spigot, so if we ever need to use a jerry can to fill up the tank, we'd insert that into the tank first. And then we've also got our jack, so if we ever need to change the tire ourselves, that's where you're going to find it. Now, one other thing that not many people know about is that inside of the regular cab version of the vehicle, if we take a look there, there's a little button. We push that button and look at this. A little bit of storage area. Now, one of the nice things is that this is lockable as well, so we would just use the key in order to lock and unlock it, but we've got the capability to store some things if we need to, and then just click it down and lock it back into place. Next up, let's take a peek at the steering wheel for this thing. So this is the XL version of the vehicle, so it's the base of the base truck. Not a lot of features and functionality, but it is your more stripped down work truck. So if you're looking for something basic, this is definitely the way to go. But looking at some of the buttons there, we've got the ability to turn our lane keeping system on or off. We've got our volume rocker, so we can increase or decrease the volume. And we've also got our voice command button there. Now, as we start to move over to the opposite side of the steering wheel, so the right-hand side, we've got a series of different buttons there. So this is going to be the ability to either answer or hang up on a phone call. We can change between active stations, we can switch songs, etc. And this is going to be the basic menu buttons in order to be able to navigate this little guy, so this little screen. So why don't we do this? Let's zoom you in a little bit here, and we'll have a little bit of fun learning about all of these features and how they work. So by pressing actually, if you ever get a screen on the menu there, so as you can see, it's saying fuel level low, we're just going to press the OK button in order to get rid of any screens that might be there. Pressing the menu button on the steering wheel is going to bring us to a menu there. So let's press that, and we've got the ability to select screens. So we're just going to go up and down, going through some different info. So we'll start off with our select screens. So we've got the ability to look at our digital speedometer. We've got our trip 1, 2, basic driver assistance settings, fuel economy, and the calming screen. So we press back again. We've got our truck info. So basic truck info, we've got our off-road status, so we can kind of see what's going on there with each axle ratio as we're going, or each axle, I should say, as we're going. Engine hours, so how long has the vehicle been going for? Moving down, we've got our power distribution, so same thing, see what's going on with each axle as we go. Auto start stop, so we've got the ability to toggle it on or off just to the right-hand side of the screen, or just along the top of the screen there, I should say. And just kind of showing you what's going on with the auto start stop, and that's going to be the basics of this screen. Moving back now, we've got some basics for towing. So going through the towing, we've got our trailer information, light status, and then our towing status as well. There's no trailer that's currently connected, so not going to be able to show you much there. Vehicle maintenance, so we've got our oil life and our active tire pressure. And we've also got some basic settings. So basic settings, we'll look at some basic vehicle settings. We've got our neutral tow mode. Again, don't have an active, I don't have any sort of active trailer connected to this thing, so can't show you anything on that side of things. But let's kind of go through some of these other screens. So as we press up and down, so as you can see, we've got our trip counter there. So as you can see, if we ever need to reset our trip, all we're gonna do is press and hold the OK button. That takes a few seconds, and as you can see there, it's reset us back to that default, so it's zeroed us out there. Moving down, we've got driver assistance, so that's going to be our lane keeping system. So we can see what's going on with the lane keeping system, whether it's on or off, by pressing this button there. Now we know the system itself is on when we see these bowling lanes. Now, one thing to note, we do need to be going above 60 kilometers an hour, and then those are going to highlight green. Once they're green, if you start to veer over without signaling, the side that you're veering over to is going to turn red, and then what's going to happen is going to be based off of what you've done on that center screen, so on that Sync 4 screen with driver assistance. So it's either going to shake the steering wheel, or it's going to recenter you and pull you back into your lane, or a mixture of both. Moving down, we've got some fuel economy settings. The same thing, we can press the menu in order to get to a few other screens there. Moving down, we've got our calming screen, which means there's going to be nothing showing on in the middle there. And then we've got our digital speedometer as well as our trip counter again. So very, very basic, but just knowing that, again, if you need some basic settings, you've got the capability to easily adjust those, and it's just going through the menu buttons along the side. Now, looking at the actual side sticks there. So first one to point out, so this one is going to be for our windshield wiper fluid, so we can adjust the speed of the wipers by moving this up or down, and we're just going to pull in towards us in order to get that windshield wiper fluid going. Along the other stick, so the right-hand stick, so the vehicle itself, 10-speed transmission, so we've got the ability to switch to our manual mode, which is just going to hold the gears longer, but if you need to drop a gear or increase a gear, so we've got the plus or minus buttons on the actual shifter there. So just knowing that we've got the capabilities to change out gears if we need to. Now, as we start to move over ahead, so a couple things to point out. We do have our visor, but because we're in the XL, we don't have any sort of a mirror there, but we do have the ability to pull this thing out, and it is extendable, so we can extend it back to block the sun from us, and just click it back up into place. Up overhead the other side, typical with Ford vehicles, we've got our sunglasses holder, and we've got the ability to turn on our cabin light, so we can turn on each light individually. We can turn them all on if we'd like to, or we can have it so that the lights do or don't come on, depending on whether or not you've got the doors open or closed. Now, because of the version of the vehicle that we're in, the XL, we do have the ability to switch this thing up or down if we need to in order to be able to dim any lights that's going on behind us, especially useful later on at night. And that, guys, really is going to be the basics of this vehicle. Well, folks, that was a look at the 2021 Ford F-150 XL. Base truck, absolutely, but if you're looking for something simple and you're a little bit budget conscious, this is definitely a great option for you, especially with the towing capacity that you can get out of such a base engine. If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, sharing it with your social network, and until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.